Hey guys, MANIC.MERCURIAN here. In this video, I want to just cover what's going on in the astrology for Monday, April 19th, when the Sun and Mercury enter Taurus, going up till the full moon in Scorpio, which will happen on Monday, April 26th. Let's get into it. Okay, so we're starting on April 19th, as I said, with Sun and Mercury both entering Taurus on the same day. It's not the same hour, but it is the same day. So Mercury will enter first into Taurus, in the morning, depending on where you are, and then the Sun will follow right afterward. So we're going from having 4 or 5 planets in Aries to now having suddenly 4 planets in Taurus. So that's definitely a big shift. We're going from Aries, which is such an explosive and disruptive time where there's all this new beginnings. You can see that in nature with all these this new growth and these new beginnings, new blossoming. Things are blossoming, things are first coming into life, things are kind of being born at this time. And so we have that fiery energy of initiation, whether that be, it could be anything. It's very personal to you. Aries is all about the self, all about learning more about who you are, your own desires, your own needs, wants, self-expression, all that stuff. So it's very personal to you. Whatever you are passionate about, it's a good time to begin stuff, whatever that is. So we're transitioning from that to a very Taurian influence. So now we're having a month-long season of Taurus. Happy birthday, Tauruses. So Taurus is where it's one of the most beautiful times of the year, depending on where you are. Taurus is ruled by Venus, though, so I would regard it as a beautiful time of year. Things that began flourishing in Aries are now in full bloom in Taurus. And basically, Aries is about realizing the identity, and Taurus is about building on that. It's about taking root and adding more substance to the personality. If Aries is kind of the baby, crying out for whatever its immediate needs are, Taurus is building on that. Taurus is meeting its needs in a more sustainable, reliable way. If Aries is about the initiation, Taurus is about the follow through. Okay, Taurus is fixed in its earth, so it's more about doing the work. Aries is the time for dreaming up plans or making goals. Taurus is about actually following through with those plans, dreams, goals, etc. It's about actually making things happen, I guess, in a more realistic, sustainable, long-term way. Okay, so that's kind of the influence here. But again, like I said, Taurus is ruled by Venus. Venus is a benefic, so generally it's a time of ease. It's the middle of spring. Everything is getting lighter, more energetic. There's a certain abundance which comes with Taurus, and you can see that depending on where you are in the world, especially if you're in a very seasonal, temperate location, Taurus becomes a time of abundance, and so it's a time of relative ease. And so we'll very much experience that, not only because the Sun and Mercury are in Taurus, but also because Venus is in Taurus, and Venus is the ruler of Taurus. So this is maybe one of your more stereotypical Taurus seasons with, that 4-planet buildup in Taurus. It's very Taurus-y Taurus season. So just keep that in mind for the following month. We'll experience pretty much everything I just said. All that Taurus energy will be with us between April 19th and May 20th. Okay? Alright, so just keeping that in mind, let's get into the details of what's going on here. So April 19th is that big shift that I was saying, the shift from Aries to Taurus. The moon is in Cancer, which makes a sextile with Taurus. So it's a waxing sextile, so that means the lunar cycle is still building up, the moon is getting more light. But it's still making that sextile, at least by sign, with the Sun, and so that's generally a more harmonious time. It's a time of sort of quiet beginnings. But the moon is about to enter Leo, where it will make a first quarter square with the Sun on Tuesday, April 20th. So let's go there. So here's the chart for April 20th. You can see very early on the 20th, the moon enters Leo, where it will make a 90-degree aspect or square aspect. In other words, a first quarter moon, which is usually a disruptive time. I can say that the Sun and the Moon are sort of in mutual reception here, since Taurus is the sign of Moon's exaltation and Leo is the sign of Sun's domicile. They're both in each other's houses, sort of. And so it's one of the more harmonious first quarter squares, I would say. But first quarter square, as I always say, is a time of sort of frenetic energy. It can make you nervous, restless, stressed. It prompts you to make some kind of change in your life, and so while the downside is that you might just be nervous or stressed, the positive side is that you could take advantage of that. As long as you're making some kind of change, being productive in some way, you can utilize that sort of nervous energy and create something out of it. So as long as you're making some kind of change in your life, probably something small, because this is just a lunar aspect, but as long as you're kind of doing something, being productive, using that energy for something, you can avoid those feelings of nervousness or stress. The first quarter moon is just a time of implementing change, making changes, adjustments, beginnings, being productive, that sort of thing. Especially with the moon in Leo, which is a fiery, energetic sign, and then 4 planets in Taurus, which is still spring. It's the middle of spring, so this would be a good time to start things, a good time for beginnings. And it is Tuesday, so I think that's kind of fitting for a work day. If you're working, I think that would be good to just use that energy to get some more work done, maybe be more productive, that type of thing. Okay, let's go to the next day, Wednesday, April 21st. There's no exact aspects, at least if we're not including the moon. You can see the moon is still continuing its square to the Taurus planets, at least by sign and by degree with Uranus. So those that nervous anxiety, restlessness that started on Tuesday will sort of continue into Wednesday. So everything I said for Tuesday, the 20th, applies to the 21st as well. Be productive, make changes, that sort of thing. As long as you're using that energy for something, you won't feel nervous or stressed. But if you're just trying to relax on Tuesday or Wednesday, the 20th or 21st, you'll probably feel stressed or anxious. So just get out there, be productive, make some kind of change. Yeah. Thursday, April 22nd, the only aspect I have is Venus conjunct Uranus. So here you can see by degree Venus is conjoining with Uranus at 10 degrees Taurus. In other words, Venus is passing Uranus at 10 degrees Taurus. So what does that mean? So Venus is a benefic in astrology. It rules sort of feminine energy, but also abundance to some extent. It rules our desires, things we find pleasurable. So that's in Taurus. So we are at this time desiring things which are sort of earthy, so we might nature can be extra pleasurable at this time, but also any kind of physical pleasures. Taurus is such a physical sign, being fixed earth. So physical pleasures like comfortable clothes, really good tasting food, like human touch, massaging, stuff like that. Any kind of physical pleasures are more desirable at this time. So that's where our desire is, and then now it's making a conjunction with Uranus, which is very unpredictable. Venus also rules relationships, so you can apply this to sort of your relationships as well, whether they be especially romantic, but also just social to some extent. So all of that, everything represented by Venus, is fusing its energy into Uranus and channeling that Uranian energy, which is so bold and unpredictable, and things which may have existed the same way for some time are suddenly kind of making a spontaneous change, which we might not expect. With any kind of Uranus transit or aspect, with anything Uranian at all, expect the unexpected. It's all about spontaneity. You can have epiphanies at this time. So combining Venus with Uranus, maybe you could find some kind of new income, since Venus is in the sign of Taurus, which rules money. Or maybe you could find some kind of new desire or new pleasure which you haven't discovered before. So maybe you're enjoying something that you didn't know you liked before, or just didn't like before. There could be changes in relationships, and especially if you have any planets in Taurus, or anything at around 10 degrees of the fixed sign. So that's Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius. You will definitely experience this more so. So expect changes in what you desire, what you find pleasurable in your relationships, stuff like that. Also in forms of income. Friday, April 23rd, no exact aspects, but it's important to note that Mars enters Cancer, where it is debilitated. Aww. So Mars is in its fall position in Cancer. Mars more acts like its normal self in a very strong way in the opposite sign of Capricorn. It's much more powerful there. Mars in Cancer it's just kind of a weird, it's sort of estranged in that area. It's just a sort of weird placement for it. Something I've noticed is that with Mars in Cancer, we might be extra defensive of our families at that time, so maybe protecting our families from what we perceive as dangerous, or if someone insults part of your family, or even if it's someone like a good friend or something like that, we might be extra defensive and extra loyal to the people we care about in our lives. But sort of ironically or unexpectedly, We might also be extra defensive or extra offensive with our family or people close to us. We might be defending our family against someone else or some outside force, or we might be fighting with our family. Mars is just all about defensiveness and offensiveness, fighting, aggression, ambition. Our sort of, it's the masculine side of our personalities. It's how we disrupt the status quo in order to either achieve our desires or passions or ambitions, stuff like that. So when it's in the sign of Cancer, which rules family, all that sort of aggressive and defensive energy gets applied to the family. So again, like I said, you can either be defensive of your family or you could be fighting with your family. So that's kind of a dysfunctional place for Mars. And so just maybe be aware of that, I guess. We might be extra sensitive with things that are close to us and familiar with us, like family or other people that are very close to us. Okay, next on Saturday, April 24th, Mercury will conjoin Uranus. So here you can see in the morning on Saturday, April 24th, Mercury is conjoining Uranus at 10 degrees Taurus. And so what does that mean? So kind of like how I described with Venus, it's basically the same but with Mercury. So Mercury represents our sort of, it's the mental energy. So it's how we think, how we communicate. It's also kind of the rhythm of the day. And so in Taurus, we're kind of thinking about physical matters, or we're thinking about all those Taurian themes of, carrying out our plans, stuff like that. So now you're combining that with Uranus, which again is bold, unpredictable, sudden changes, expect the unexpected, etc. And especially with Mercury there, Mercury's how we think, and so if you're combining that with Uranus, you might have sudden epiphanies at that time, sudden realizations. You might change your perspective on things. There could be changes in opinions at that time. Especially being in a fixed sign like Taurus, it might be a way you've thought for a very long time, or an opinion or belief that you've held for a very long time that you might see in a different light suddenly and unexpectedly. Being in Taurus, it might be something about maybe your work or your method of income. Again, there's that focus on physical pleasure, so it could also be about maybe how you spend your money, or your budget, but also about maybe what you find pleasurable. Maybe you're kind of rethinking your priorities in all of those areas, or just having a new perspective or new realization on those types of subject matters. Again, Taurus is a sign of money, so it could have to do with anything related to money as well. But I do want to point out that the Venus is still very close at 11 degrees Taurus. So this is pretty much a three-way conjunction between Uranus, Mercury, and Venus at 10 degrees Taurus and 11 degrees Taurus. And especially being in the sign of Taurus ruled by Venus, this is a very Venusian conjunction, but also you're mixing that frenetic mental energy of Mercury and the bold, unpredictable energy of Uranus. So definitely with either money, how you spend money, what you find pleasurable, relationships, all that type of stuff. Maybe some unexpected changes at this time. Again, especially if you have any planets around 10 or 11 degrees, give or take maybe 3 degrees of the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius, you might definitely expect some kind of unexpected change regarding all those types of things. These 3 planets are also making a square with Saturn at 12 degrees Aquarius, and so there could be some kind of push and pull. Maybe you realize something about how you're making money or how you're spending money or all that stuff, your relationships, your physical pleasures. You might realize that all that stuff isn't compatible with your long-term plans in some way, and so there's kind of a friction there, or a push and pull. Maybe there's some kind of, I don't want to say crisis, but maybe there's some kind of problematic situation with your work. Something about the long term isn't really meshing well with your immediate desires or pleasures, or the way you're making money or the way you're spending money. And again, that will especially affect fixed signs, so just expect that. The positive side would be that although Uranus aspects in transits such as this are discomforting, because we might realize something that maybe something we were okay with before and we weren't really aware of, now we're aware of in a much more vivid light, and we realize that this thing that we were okay with actually isn't satisfactory anymore, and we have to make some kind of improvement or change in that area. So that can be discomforting, and it does require some work on your part, but it can lead to new levels of consciousness where you find something much better for yourself. So that's what I would experience, and I personally like Uranus aspects, so So, learn to embrace those new ways of making money, spending money, new ways of thinking, new ways of finding pleasure. That's what you could look forward to with this kind of aspect. So, although it is disruptive, it can be expansive to your quality of life. I do want to also just mention that for both Friday and Saturday, April 23rd and 24th, Moon is transiting through Virgo, which is very nice because it makes a trine with all those Taurus planets. So not only is the Moon trining the Sun, so that's usually generally kind of harmonious and easy, just pleasant day. But also it's trining Uranus, Mercury, and Venus. So a lot of earthy energy just for the time being. So we're thinking about, our work, physical things, money, our physical environments. Moon in Virgo is always a good time to organize or clean, just kind of, assess everything, assess your finances, assess your living situation, and kind of just edit things. So like, like cleaning is pretty much like that. You're like kind of getting rid of all the old stuff, all the clutter, refining things. It's good for refining, editing your life, I guess you could say. And with all that earthiness, I would really say, I already kind of touched on this, but spend time in nature. I think we should all do that always as much as we can, but especially with all these earth sign energies, that's really prompting us to get out in nature, or just to do things which are grounding or calming in some way. Earth signs are very observant, so all this earth energy might prompt us to learn about something we like, or especially with Moon in Virgo, which is such an intellectual sign. Sunday, April 25th, Moon enters Leo, which sort of clashes with Taurus because it's making a conjunct aspect. So they are very different energies. However, they're both ruled by Venus, and so there's a high Venusian theme right now. Not only the Moon is ruled by Venus being in Libra, but also Sun, Uranus, and Mercury are ruled by Venus being in Taurus, and Venus is in domicile in Taurus. So this is a very Venusian time. We might be thinking more about our pleasures, and so while Taurus explores more of the physical nature of our pleasures, Libra is the more intellectual or social side of our pleasures, and so both of those are highlighted right now with multiple planets in Taurus and the Moon in Libra for the next couple days. Take this time to maybe indulge a bit. Obviously, moderation is always key, especially with Moon in Libra. But yeah, take the time to indulge yourself, especially more in physical pleasures, I'd say. But that does kind of blend with the social, because a lot of what we desire has to do with other people, whether that be in a vain physical sort of way or in an intellectual way. Desiring other people, desiring positive social interactions, desiring human touch. All these types of things come up with Venus being so strong right now. Also, Sunday, Mercury does approach and conjoin Venus. Mercury and Venus will be conjunct at 13 degrees Taurus, so you're combining the intellectual energy with the romantic or desirable energy pertaining to desire. So Mercury making an aspect with Venus, this is very much ideal for like social interactions or pleasant conversations. Mercury is such a chatterbox, I guess you could say. It's so focused on connections and gathering information, and you're combining that with Venus, which is so sweet and makes everything more pleasant or more just kind of softer, I guess you could say. So these are like the dream team when it comes to positive social interactions. So you can definitely utilize that, whether it be for business or pleasure. Taurus is like the ultimate sign for business and pleasure. So take advantage of these positive social interactions, whether it just be for, having fun, socializing, or whether it be for work, if the nature of your work has to do with social interactions, which I'd say most of our work does probably. But I would like to point out as well that the Mercury-Venus conjunction at 13 degrees is only a few degrees away from Uranus and Taurus still. So think about all that positive social energy. Like Mercury conjoining Venus in Taurus is like the perfect energy for a party, not like a college frat party, but more like a refined like dinner party type of thing. With that Venusian influence, you're not going to want something super chaotic, especially in Taurus, which is fixed Earth. It's more about like a highbrow type event. That's kind of what I think. But now you're mixing all that energy, all those themes, all that pleasant social interaction with Uranus. So there's some kind of unexpected, weird, edgy, unpredictable twist to it. and just expect, like I said, maybe groundbreaking changes. So I think the perfect thing for this kind of configuration would be maybe having that kind of highbrow dinner party, but learning something totally shocking and profound out of it, which might be least expected because it might be such a sort of conventional, maybe even plain Jane setting, but one which could be very desirable and pleasant to experience. But from that, just getting something totally profound which changes how you look at life, maybe. That's the type of thing which I think would be perfect here, and that could be in multiple different ways. So it could be at work too, since Taurus has so much to do with productivity and work. Maybe you're just having pleasant conversations at work and you learn something really, really new, or maybe even unsettling, but something which broadens your horizons and adds to your consciousness in some way. These are the types of things I would expect on Sunday, April 25th, with Mercury conjoining Venus at 13 degrees, and both Mercury and Venus also sort of making a conjunction with Uranus at 10 degrees Taurus, orb of 3 degrees. So lastly, on April 26th, which is a Monday, Moon enters Scorpio. So now we're beginning to gear up for the full moon in Scorpio. Here's the exact chart. So around midday, depending on where you are, the full moon will be at 7 degrees Scorpio, with the sun exactly opposite at 7 degrees Taurus. And so I will explain a little bit about this, but I will also mention that I'll do a much deeper dive on this in the next video when I begin my video to begin on this full moon day. But just taking a brief look at this, you can see the full moon sort of makes a loose trine with Mars at 2 degrees Cancer, so there's kind of a water trine there. There's also sort of a conjunction with an orb of 3 degrees to Uranus, which is at 10 degrees Taurus. Again, Sun is at 7 degrees Taurus, preparing to make that conjunction with Uranus in a few days. And those are really the main aspects, and the moon, being in Scorpio, is ruled by Mars, which is in Cancer, another water sign. But the sun, as well as Uranus and Mercury, are all in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus, like I said. So this has to do a lot with desire and possessions. Both Taurus and Scorpio are ruled by Venus and Mars, which have to do with desire. But these are the fixed yin signs, or the fixed earth and water signs, so it has to do with possessions and our security, I guess you could say. Also a lot to do with intimacy. And the full moon being in Scorpio, the full moon is lit up by the sun, I guess, in a very literal way. And so being in Scorpio, a lot of times it represents uncovering hidden truths that we weren't aware of before. You might just learn something shocking and unpredictable. I've experienced that very strongly. So especially if that aspects one of your personal planets. So if you have anything at 7 degrees, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius, these are the fixed signs. If you have anything at 7 degrees of those signs, this full moon will either make a conjunction, square, or opposition with one of your natal planets. And doing so, it will make a clash in your life. So you might learn something which, especially with that Uranian influence, you might learn something which was unbeknownst to you, that was something kind of deep and hidden maybe about your life, which again might be very discomforting, but can increase your consciousness in some way. There's a Uranian connection with Scorpio as well, since Uranus is exalted in Scorpio. So, Scorpio is all about things that are unexpected or unpredictable or weird or shocking. So that's kind of what you can expect, maybe uncovering some hidden truths which are discomforting but aid in the increasing of your consciousness and are therefore vital and important, and although they might take away from your quality of life in the short term, as long as you kind of delve into them and just get real and aren't afraid to get real deep in whatever it is that you're learning about, I do believe that they can assist in your quality of life once you sort of adjust to this new paradigm that you've found. So at any rate, that's what I see for the astrology from April 19th to April 26th. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.